You could see, point there, you could see people are standing, and the media, there was no media yesterday in this area. They all come, is this all because of Kardashian? It is incredible that one woman dragged everybody here, you know, all behind me, the Armenian media. We were just like...
Yeah.
You know, when you go to conferences, people will often say something like, well, this next speaker requires no introduction. Well, in this case, it couldn't be truer. 250 million followers. But you know, I know how anxious everyone is to meet Kim Kardashian West. So without any waste, even of a nanosecond, I want to introduce you to Mrs. Kim Kardashian West.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, it's an incredible moment for all of us. It's an incredible moment for the WCIT, and I think especially for Armenia. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Of course, there's no place I'd rather be at a tech conference than in Armenia. It feels good to be here.
For those of you who might be wondering, Kim at a tech conference, let me just say that about 2 years ago, I wrote a book. Here it is, and I'm going to give a copy to Kim. The book is titled Power Up: How Smart Women Win in the New Economy. The idea was to encourage young women to basically enter the technology field, to realize that actually you can be really successful. And Kim Kardashian West, you, really exemplify winning in the new economy. Understanding technology, using technology, building an amazing follower base, building an amazing business. So today, what we really want to do is get into your brain, understand how you started, understand how you built this amazing franchise, but even more importantly, understand how do you keep it up. So tell us, Kim, how did you start in media, in the television world, and then decided to really go online and take advantage of social media?
Yeah, well, I always knew that I wanted to be on TV, but I was always fascinated by reality TV. I know that sounds like a ridiculous goal, maybe, because especially back then, reality TV, it just wasn't really that popular.
Well, I think you defined it. I think you defined it and then you owned it.
I mean, but being like a kid at 11 years old, or maybe I was 12 or 13, seeing The Real World, and that was the first reality show of really its kind. I remember seeing that and thinking, this is really what I want to do. And I would tell my friends, and now I'm so blessed to work with the same production company as The Real World. So I kind of always knew what I wanted to do, but I never really had a plan or a goal of how to figure that out. I would say in life, I'm very organized and I'm very thought out, but I did wing it. And I think it's okay to wing it sometimes.
I couldn't agree more, by the way. I mean, one of the things that I talk about in Power Up is to really not try to figure out how to have the winning strategy, because you just never know. You just have to respond to opportunity.
And it's about adapting to those opportunities, and it's about figuring it out. And maybe at the beginning of my career, I would have done anything, maybe things that I didn't necessarily believe in, products that I was selling, anything from maybe shoes and cupcakes to workout clothes.
You sold cupcakes?
Everything.
Really?
Everything you name it, I tried it at least. And the evolution of really finding my confidence and my power was an evolution. And I got to do it in front of the world, figuring it out and figuring out what I really wanted to be into and what I was really passionate about. But the main message that I want to tell everybody, especially women, is it's okay to figure it out as you go. It's kind of like when you're a new mom and you think you're just supposed to have it all figured out and you just are winging it. You're figuring it out as you go. And it doesn't mean that you're less of a successful person because you were figuring it out as you go. I think that's everyone in life.
A lot of startups use the word pivoting, and in technology world, we use the word pivoting all the time, maybe overused, but it's exactly what you're talking about, where you try something, and if it doesn't work, you try another version, and if that doesn't work, you try a third time. But what it takes is resilience. What it takes is the opportunity to hang in there, not give up, and that's a great message, I think, for all of us, but especially women, because I think women are more perfectionists than men are.
As if you know my husband, that would be the truest statement. But yes, I totally, I believe that as long as you learn from every step of the way and every mistake or every success, everything that you do, as long as it's a part of your story and as long as you learn from it, you're doing the right thing.
In the technology world, we also use another term very often, and that's transparency. And I really do think that Kim Kardashian West has defined the term transparency. You are willing to open up your life and basically be on camera, share a lot of your personal life. How do you balance that? How do you balance privacy with, in fact, allowing the world to see how you live and how you conduct your day-to-day life?
I think at the beginning, I didn't even know what the word privacy really meant. I was very okay with people knowing every detail of my life. As you get a little bit older and you have kids and you realize you do want to value some privacy, I figured out a really good balance of sharing what I want to share. I think, there definitely is oversharing, especially when safety can be a factor, and it can, when there's so many eyes on you. I learned firsthand that if you share too much, it could be a little bit dangerous at times, and so I was really cautious, and I move really cautiously now that I have kids, but I still love to be open and honest, and that's who I am, and that's my brand, and there is a way to have both, and to share, but not feel like your whole life has been, or is being used just for social media. You do have to have balance.
Absolutely, I agree. I want to switch and talk about what you and I discussed yesterday, and that is, how do you decide to bring out another product? You have had this amazing franchise for multiple years now. Today you have 250 million followers, and your followers are not slowing down. In fact, if anything, they're growing. So how do you keep your franchise going? How do you keep your brand going? And most importantly, when you're bringing out a new product, how involved do you get?
So every product that like if we're just talking beauty and fragrance and shapewear, those are the companies that I own. They're not licensing deals. So I'm involved every step of the way, from the packaging to the logo design to pretty much everything.
That's a lot of detail. So you don't delegate the pieces like a logo design or color to others? Do you actually oversee that, make the
Not
final
with anything
decisions?
visual. Yeah, the visual aspect of it, I like to oversee it all. Shapewear would be maybe a little bit different because if we go into retail, there's other people that will do that instead, so I won't handle all of those relationships. But what I've found is every time there's a product that I want to release, I mean, it works when it's super authentic to you. If you love something so much, or if you're really good at something. So for me, shapewear, I feel like I've been creating my own shapewear for over a decade. With beauty, I feel like I've got my first makeup lesson when I was 14 years old. And so every time I want to put out a product, I just have to make sure that it's super authentic and really thought out. And I do it every step of the way, from the press box that we deliver, to all the influencers, to the campaign, to the photographer. The look and feel of everything is me.
But it's not just physical world products that you have. You actually rolled out a game, and it's been a digital product that's been going on for, what, 5 years now?
A little over 5 years now.
And the character seems to follow you, actually. So tell me about that. How involved are you with a computer game, and understanding that most games have a shelf life of about 18 months? You have yours going for about 5 years.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of Kim Kardashian Hollywood. It was really my first tech venture. A tech company approached me in Silicon Valley, and I was actually unsure at first. Do I want to do a video game? How would I make that authentic to me? Because when you think of a celebrity in a video game, you think of more like a basketball game or something related to sports. So the concept was really cute, and the fact that I would have a really big say in what my character would do and wear, and a lot of it's called Kim Kardashian Hollywood, and a lot of it has to do with the clothes that the character is wearing and buying and photo shoots and everything in Hollywood. So I think it's maintained its success due to just being so involved, I think a lot of times, I can't speak for anyone that I personally know, but when you hear of all these deals, and these deals that especially celebrities do, they sometimes just put their name on it
And forget about it.
Yeah.
And you stay current, and you keep it current, so that actually the game is a reflection of you, it sounds like. I'm going to switch the topic to a different area now, and that is I think 250,000 people, is that right? Following you. When you go to bed at night, do you think about that? Because, the population of many countries in the world are not as large as your followers. So when you go home and are going to bed, do you say
now having that in my head.
Yeah,
Well, last night I woke up at midnight being so jet lagged, and my daughter wanted to have a dance party, and so it's 2 a.m, and she's asking me to video her to send it to her best friend to show her new dance moves. And so she said, "Did you post that? Did you post it?" And just the thought of it's really fascinating. It's obviously there's so many benefits, and then there's some negativity as well, but just the fact that social media has evolved so much is fascinating to me, that I could easily post my dance party in the middle of the night. I'm the worst dancer, so you would not want to see this dance party on my phone. But just to know that that's even a possibility really blows my mind sometime. And I am mindful of it.
yes. And what social media has really done is really flatten the world, right? Geography no longer matters. You can be accessing people in every time zone. So when it's midnight here in Armenia, it's actually daytime in the United States. So the reach of social media is incredibly powerful. And you really have learned, I think, over time to take advantage of that and really use it cautiously. Are you a numbers person? Do you worry about your followers potentially, leveling off? And how often do you check the numbers?
So I'm not the biggest numbers person on social media. I have realized that I am really mindful of not getting too worked up over it, because I do understand that's not the healthiest thing, is to worry about likes and engagement that way. I'm a numbers person when it comes to business and launches. I'm always available launch day to be on my Shopify account and see what's selling, what's not. Just about all the customers. I'm a numbers person in that way because I just care so much. I really want to know how a launch is going. I'm very involved that way.
Yesterday when we were together, you talked about a launch in makeup, actually, that didn't go as well as you wanted. Partly, you were saying it was because it wasn't really as authentic of what you use. Can you tell us more about that? That's a product that was not as satisfactory to you at launch.
Yeah, so I always like to do analysis of everything that I am launching, and I feel like every launch to me is really emotional. I spend time to think about the concept and the photo shoot, and because my brand is primarily direct-to-consumer, I feel like I have a huge responsibility to come up with the perfect campaign to the perfect product. And so sometimes, the makeup that I wear is very neutral, and I'm kind of known for wearing a nude lip all the time and a more simple eye makeup, or the very specific colors. I don't really veer off of that. So when I try to do something because I really want to, I think it's fun, and I want to do a bright color, it might not sell as well because it's just not what people see me in all the time. So I am really mindful of that going forward. I don't really get that upset about it. I just move forward. I figure out why it's not working and figure out what really does work and move on.
I'm sure everyone in the audience would like to hear how often do you launch a new product, and how much homework do you do? How much market research do you do, in fact, before you launch a new product?
So I think, I try to launch a new product monthly, and with fragrance and makeup and shapewear, I try to map it all out. Sometimes it'll be 2 products with different companies a month, but for market research, I really sometimes, it's good to see what's out there in the marketplace, but sometimes it's not beneficial to look to the right or look to the left all the time. If you just stay focused and look straight and do what you want to do, I have found that when I try to keep up with the trends, like do a trendy color, it hasn't served me as well. So,
but how about market research with your fans, your followers? You have this amazing access to them. Basically, you have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that you can reach them. Do you take advantage of like a focus group, a virtual focus group?
I absolutely do. That's the best part. That's what I think got me hooked to Twitter and really shaped my brand, because when I was launching, my first fragrance, I tweeted, should I use this color pink, like a lighter pink or a darker pink? And I really did listen to the advice of what everyone was tweeting back to me. And I think that shaped a huge part of my brand, because I realized how important the fan base was, and that is who my brand is. I wanted to make products for them. And so I think ever since then, we've become this like unit together, making little drops of products that I really believe that they want.
Yeah, and in the world of technology, usually we use the word user base versus followers, but it's really the same thing. I mean, you're taking advantage of having access to your user base and taking their input, basically seeking their input first, and then taking their input as you shape your new products. But the cadence of launching new products seems incredibly fast-paced, bringing out something new in such, successive order.
I do plan out really far in advance though.
So far?
About a year. I have my yearly calendar. I just, sometimes it can be so last minute and because it just clicks and it's right. And sometimes it's super planned out, but I try to be as planned out as possible.
And so is the yearly calendar, let's say, taking off in January, putting that together, and who are some of your most go-to, confidants, if you may, or collaborators, your executive staff in planning that calendar with you?
Yeah, so I have a really small staff of about 4 people, maybe 5, and we work really well together. I'd love to have a meeting, once a week with everybody and all of our boards up.
Are they like Monday morning meetings, or how do you conduct that?
It depends on traveling and where I'm at. I mean, I'm in the office. I definitely go once a day. It's right down the street, so I'm definitely there. But I'd love to have meetings at my house, and just after I come back from a trip, I was super inspired by things that I saw here in Armenia, so I'll go back with some new ideas. I thought of like 4 ideas that I'm excited about. But I love to travel, and also when I can't think of ideas and when I feel like, what am I going to put on that calendar for a next launch and I can't think of anything, I love to travel. And I get so many ideas traveling.
Would you mind sharing some of the ideas you said that your time here in Armenia inspired you? Just give us a little peek into your thinking.
I thought of a good fragrance. There was, I don't want to give it away.
Okay, I don't want you to. I don't want you to. But just give us categories at least.
I think something in beauty, something major in beauty
What do you mean major?
Just a major idea, something I haven't done before that I was inspired by yesterday, just driving down the streets of Armenia. And then I think a fragrance I would love to do with some beautiful, fragrant Armenian flowers.
Sounds lovely. Okay, we'll be waiting for that. We'll be following you and looking for the launch.
Team, I love you!
You're going to continue to have Kim when we're done with the fireside chat, because Kim is also joining the panel that we're going to move on to. But before we do that, I want to basically ask you specifically about being in Armenia, which we just talked about, but also being at a tech conference in Armenia. How does that make you feel?
Well, I couldn't be more proud. I had to bring my kids because just being in Armenia, I've been once before, but being able to bring my sister Courtney, who had never been here before, and all of our children, and getting the opportunity to baptize them all yesterday here in Armenia. Everything to us. We'll have these memories forever. So that, just on a personal trip, that means everything. We're filming my TV show here today and on this trip, so I love being able to even use some local Armenian people here to help coordinate our trip and get it all situated. So, I mean, that in itself just means everything to me to be here. When I heard they were holding the tech conference in Armenia. I mean, it wasn't even, I couldn't say yes fast enough. It was the best, you know, excuse to come here again. So thank you for having me. And I'm just so proud. There's a huge tech conference. People back at home, I think I was telling you this yesterday, someone that works for me went to go buy something at Nordstrom's and said, oh, I need this bag because I'm traveling. And the girl that worked there said, well, where are you going? And she said, oh, Armenia. And the girl that worked there said, I'm Armenian. There's this huge tech conference in Yerevan and everyone's going and they have all these, you know, it's so exciting for our country. And I was so excited that just people around the world are so excited to be here and that a huge tech conference like this is happening in Armenia. So thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
As we close the fireside chat with Kim Kardashian West, I just want to say, Kim, that I am full-blooded Armenian. I grew up in Istanbul, Turkey, and lived there until I went to college. And when I went to the United States, I was trying to, you know, talk about this region and talk about Armenia. I would tell my best friends about the food and about the culture. And you know, it would go in one ear, out the other. They didn't really remember much until you came to Armenia in 2015. And then all of a sudden, my friends were quoting me facts about Armenia, the ones that hadn't even paid attention to me. So thank you for what you do, for your culture, and now it's time. We're going to remain seated. But they are going to bring additional chairs for the rest of the panel. And when the chairs are situated, we're going to move to the end, and I'm going to invite the other panelists.
Hi, sorry about that. Sorry, thank you very much. A round of applause, please, to Magdalene for an amazing experience. We're going to get some chairs, we're going to bring on 3 more amazing panelists, so just sit tight, we'll do it as quickly as we can, stay where you are.
And in the meantime, Kim, I'm going to give you a copy of Power Up. But my cheat sheet
so
is
much.
so I have to take it.
Okay.
But I did autograph it for you. But
Can I just say one thing? I had the best string cheese and lavash on the way here. That's my favorite snack at home.
Okay, let me introduce you on stage, please. Immediately now, the amazing, it's my glasses, 1 second.
I hope he didn't lose his glasses, but if he did, he could borrow mine.
It's Yerevan, the funding member of Salesforce. That's you, sorry. I'll go to start again. Avoyan, Hovhannes, the founder of PicsArt. Followed by Alexis, Chung, the founder of GIPHY. And last but not least, Alexis, Ohanian, the co-founder.
Introducing the panelists, I thought that it would be best if they could very shortly introduce themselves. You already listened to Kim, so we will move to Hovhannes and have each panelist basically talk about their background for about a minute and a half. Thank you. Hovhannes?
Thank you, Magdalena. I'm a founder of PicsArt, and PicsArt is my 5th company. I have other successful companies before PicsArt. And before starting my companies, I was a PhD student. And back in the 90s, we were teaching computers to play chess. So I was early in AI. And surprisingly, I found a lot of things in common between science and entrepreneurship. You are selecting the problems you solve, You are doing a lot of experiments. You are failing, you are learning, and you are executing. So this experience was very instrumental for my future success as an entrepreneur. Now, PicsArt is one of the top most downloaded apps in the world. And if by 5 years ago I was dreaming about being the best photo editor on mobile, I think we are there now. So we are the most downloaded photo editor on mobile. And my next dream is to reach 1 billion people on PicsArt.
That's a great dream. Alex?
Thanks for having me. Yerevan's been so nice to me and so welcoming, I really appreciate it. So I'm the founder of GIPHY. If you've ever sent a GIF in your life, it's most likely coming from we're now, we'll talk about what we do, but we are now the second largest search engine behind Google. We serve almost 1 billion people a day, about 10 million people. Before that, though, I was a lot of you here are engineers. There's a lot of good engineering crew here, so in Yerevan. So before that, I was an engineer, and after being an engineer for a while and not looking cool, I went back to art school, went to fashion school, and then dropped out, and then went to 2 different art schools. Got to New York. I actually went to Y Combinator with Alexis like 10 years ago.
Don't date us like that.
It
was a minute ago.
It was a really, really long time ago. And I've been doing this is my 12th startup. I've been doing this for the last 25 years.
Alexis. There's probably a few Redditors out here. I started Reddit right out of school, right on, and we sold it early, and then in 2010 I needed to get away from the Silicon Valley bubble, and I came here and lived in Armenia for 4 months, and that was my first trip here, and I was ashamed it took me that long, but I was grateful that I did, and in all the years that I keep coming back, I continue to be more impressed, more excited, more hyped, and yeah, I'm very, very happy to be here. And
Well, all of you are multiple-time entrepreneurs. You've all started multiple companies. But what I would like to ask first is the current company that you've just started. Give me, if you wouldn't mind, and our audience, the origin story. Why are you doing what you're doing? Kim, in your case, it's your shapewear product.
Yes, I started a company called Skims, and it is shapewear and lingerie for all women. I wanted to be extremely inclusive. Usually shapewear, for me, the reason I wanted to start it was because there were a lot of styles out there that I had never seen before, and skin tone colors that didn't exist for even my skin tone. Usually shapewear comes in 1 or 2 colors of really pale color and black. And so I would always take my shapewear and dye it with tea bags and try to get a skin tone a little bit similar to mine. So I launched Skims a few months ago with 9 different shades and completely seamless, which I hadn't seen before. So I basically like to take something that I am looking for, that I believe me and all my friends and sisters find as a necessity, and try to figure out how to make the best version of that.
Thank you very much. And Hovhannes, PicsArt, you started how many years ago? Tell us the origin story of that.
PicsArt was live in 2011, and I was in the process of selling my previous company, and I saw my daughter crying. And the reason she was crying, she was 10 years old, and she shared one of her drawings in one of the social networks and get very nasty comments, and she was completely shocked. So it was kind of like father feeling about like feeling the pain for your daughter. And I want to do something. I want to create something for people like her to be not only creative, but be also in a positive environment, to be surrounded by other people like her. And that's why all the philosophy of PicsArt is, first of all, to lower the barriers of creativity, make it available to everyone. And second, to create a very welcoming community where people are sharing and enjoying to do art together.
Thank you. Sounds fantastic. So if you guys see a little girl crying next, you know where to direct that child. Alex, tell us, you're so many companies in your past. Tell us why you started GIPHY.
So GIPHY, just like Kim, was just a project I did for my friends, because there was no place to find gifts and send them to your friends. And Google actually hadn't done that at the time either. And it started from a weird philosophical conversation about language and how, we only have a couple words for love in every language. There's maybe one emoji, but there's a million different ways to express it. And there's no way to actually send or communicate all those different types of expression to people. So we came up with this idea of an expression search engine. Somewhere to catalog all of the human expression in the world and be able to take that from pop culture and media and then be able to send it to your friends or family or anyone to express exactly what type of love or feelings that you have, that you're thinking that words just aren't available to do, especially across culture. My mom doesn't speak English, so trying to communicate like the crazy frustration she has in Korean to me is like very, very difficult. We ended up building this engine, and then the whole goal from the beginning was to see if could we compete with Google from search. And when we looked at Google actually only searches about 5% of all possible words in the dictionary. But all of the other words about love, happy, hungry, excited, all of the words that are actually words about humanity are things that no one searches Google for. And we knew that there had to be a search engine that was really not organizing the world's information, but organizing the world's expression and culture. And that was the mission of the company, and now after 7 years, we're the second largest search engine.
That's pretty phenomenal. And I actually didn't know that, so thank you for sharing that. So Alexis, you've done a lot of things in your life, and you are choosing to do something very different this time around. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, it really was my experience with Reddit that helped guide why my co-founder Gary Tan and I created Initialized, which is an early stage venture capital firm. Basically, we were really lucky because in 2005, someone took a chance on a couple of college kids who didn't have any experience or any qualifications. The last thing basically, I was preparing to be a lawyer, and I walked out of an LSAT to go get breakfast one morning and realized if I didn't want to take this really important test and instead would rather just get some waffles, I probably shouldn't be a lawyer. So I was pretty aimless at the time.
Early warning you had.
Yeah, I mean, it was fortuitous because it forced me to figure out like, all right, what can I do? And I was a good enough programmer that I could start building. But I didn't have the credentials. I had no business experience whatsoever aside from working in a Pizza Hut in a parking garage. And so I got a $12,000 check that changed everything. And so the way we want Initialized to thrive is by being willing to have the courage to be the first investors in a company, even when it's just a couple of relatively underqualified founders, but who have big ambitions and have demonstrated ability to execute on them. And it's something I actually realized while I was on my paternity leave. I took 4 months off to just be a dad and do dad things. And frankly, during that time, I realized I wanted to have really good dinner table stories. Because at the time before that, I'd gone back to Reddit to help lead the turnaround. But my work with a company now at like 450 people, which is still pales in comparison to the ones next to me, but even that size wasn't about real work anymore. It was just about executive therapy sessions. And I wanted to get closer to solving real problems so that I could come home from work every day and not tell my daughter about navigating between helping a GC talk to our COO, but instead about the great entrepreneurs that I got to meet. And there's plenty right here in the audience, I'm sure.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Alex, you just said something that really struck me, and that is, if I heard you correctly, you said your mom doesn't really speak English. And one of the issues for the technology companies has been localization. Before, we had to localize or software to be able to reach the world. But now that we have moved to images, a lot more expressive images that tell stories, we actually have an opportunity to reach the world. Can you elaborate a little bit on this whole concept of your mom wanting to express her frustrations with you and the tools you created for her?
So, I actually have most of my friends' moms now send me random gifts. And you'll get this random gift and you had no idea that they were that funny or they were that weird. And they will spend hours searching for this thing to represent themselves. They don't really have the words. My mom's a painter and she was educated, but when she moved here, when she was 30 years old, to the United States, not Armenia, that would have been cool. When I was speaking Armenian, she didn't have the vocabulary with which to talk to people. And just even being able to say a few words, so everyone just kind of considered her to be, a 10-year-old kid. And I remember when I moved here when I was 5 to the United States, that is, and learning English was really hard. And then what we're seeing is all of these people, the expressions they have, the ability, because cinema is pretty universal now. Like even Parasite now is a Korean film that's just won at Cannes. That 20 years ago would never have been the case, right? Korean cinema was like not even a thing. There wasn't enough distribution. So we're in an era now where the creative tools are available to anyone to create content. The distribution is available to everyone. And now what we're seeing is people can use this content to express themselves all over to each other. And that is something that my mom has never had access to. So, every day we have hundreds of millions of people expressing different types of emotions to people all over the world. So I do think we're just starting, the second thing that you ever say in a conversation after hello is, how are you? But to answer that in different languages is really difficult. Answering that from my mom's point of view, she has like 2 words to express that, even though there's a million different ways to do that. And now she has tools, a lot of what PicsArt and other companies are doing to express what she's feeling.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I totally agree. I think that this whole concept of not being able to express emotion in words, English is actually my 4th language. I started out with Armenian, Turkish, French, English, and I had those very same frustrations. There are a lot of words that I just can't even find in English after, knowing English for 45 years now. Hovhannes, you also are in the world of pictures. Tell us about how your user base actually uses PicsArt to express emotion.
Right, so also I have known 3 languages, a little less like you. I know Armenian, Russian, and English. But believe me, there are more countries in the world that understand these languages. And when you go to these countries where people didn't understand your language, what do you do? You use your body language. So it's when you need food, you say, I need food, right? And you want to check, you say, try to check. Right? And everybody understands that because it's a very universal language. People use images and visual stories to communicate since cave ages, and we have in our DNA to communicate through images. What we do at PicsArt, we really empower everyone to create a visual story. Making visual story is a very fundamental skill, which we have in our DNA to do that. When we are kids, we do lots of creativity, and we want to provide fun tools, not only just powerful tools, but fun tools for people to not only create, but also have fun with creating that, and have lots of practice and gamified experience versus going like 6-month courses for Photoshop, enjoy and do it for fun and learn skills, and then use this storytelling in your personal or business life.
Yeah, thank you. Kim, when we were doing the fireside chat, you talked about how important image is for your new product rollouts, for your products, and actually how personally you get involved with the image, with the logo, with the colors, etc. So you obviously agree with the panelists that, in fact, visual is really important. Has there been a visual that you really feel really made a big difference that you've worked on? And if not, just tell us, how do you actually decide what visual to go with?
Well, obviously, I think a huge part of my career has been image, and through social media apps, you know, I use PicsArt, I use GIPHs. I mean, I think if you're in the social media world and you have a brand that really is, especially my brand, relies a lot on me. So there is a lot of pressure to find the right expression to, you know, for me, in my case, let's talk about maybe Skims. I wanted the brand to be really known for inclusivity, and so to find the perfect photographer to get the perfect, to capture the perfect emotion of what I wanted to say, that first time out to the world that I presented it on Instagram was really kind of your make it or break it. To me, I think the first impression is really important, and you have to really take the time to figure out what you want that brand to be. And like I said, my team's a really small team. It's about 4 or 5 people, and we come up with every idea really ourselves. We don't outsource any agencies, so we understand that image is really everything, but we rely on inspiration from maybe gifts that we see or edits that we see, or, you know, even like I was mentioning earlier, just traveling around the world to get different perspectives on images. So images are extremely important, and I take them extremely seriously. You know, when I post things on Instagram, I'm very mindful of what I post and what image it is, whether I, you know, use an app to express that, or, you know, an editing image app to express that. I think if you are very serious about your brand, you have to be extremely serious about the images that you put out.
Because we live in such a visual world these days. Alexis, now you are a venture capitalist investor, so you look at a lot of different companies. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think the next wave is going to be on image tools?
Well, I agree with all the panelists here. We live in this visual age. Actually, I remember being a kid in grade school looking and learning about like Egyptian hieroglyphics and thinking like, how do they communicate all of that with just a few symbols? And now I see a GIF and it can tell an entire story, an emoji can tell an entire story, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. I really think we've reached a kind of sort of peak social. And I think the reason we're seeing a proliferation of more community-driven apps is because we've all kind of reached the saturation point in a lot of ways. We're going to look for networks. I mean, not unlike your daughter crying because of the commentary she got. I think we've all now got social media ubiquity, and the platforms that get me most excited, the ones that I think are going to grow the most in the next 10 years, are actually ones that give us a sense of community and a shared space for whatever that is, whether that's talking about our favorite sports team or creating art together. I think that's where all of this goes. And I do think the format is going to be very visual, whether it is images or moving images, video. That's absolutely where it's at. And don't even get me started, as 5G rolls out, that just becomes a no-brainer because we'll have so much bandwidth wherever we go for whatever videos or your live content we want.
Thank you. Earlier in the fireside chat, Kim and I talked about growing a user base, growing a follower base. I wanted to hear from you guys as to what are some of the user acquisition strategies that you feel are going to actually make a difference going forward. As an investor, one of the worries that I used to have when I was a venture capitalist was I didn't want to invest in a company for all that money to go to Facebook and Google, right? I mean, I wanted to have my dollars that got invested to be used in a much more efficient way. So, yet we live with our user acquisition numbers, our monthly active users, etc. So as an entrepreneur founder, what are your tools? What do you have, or what would you like to have to be able to grow your user base or your follower base?
So as a startup, especially when you're on an early stage of your startup, acquiring first users are super important because later on you can learn, you can have data, you can optimize, but you need first users. And to get these first users, almost every startup I know they use different growth hacking tactics. I can tell you one of the funny stories of our early growth hacking we have. If you remember on Android, there was a very early Android store. They have a section called recent apps or updates. And in order to get to the top of the list, you need to submit your app Friday midnight, basically, and then you get a very high chance to be on the top of the list. So you stay there for almost a week, like on top of the list. So we decided to do like release every week, and we stayed like nights just to make this sharp deadline to deliver our app by Friday night.
So you hacked the system.
Yeah, we hacked the system, yes. It's not possible anymore, they take this down, but that was that growth hacking tactics we have. And there are lots of things you do when you're early, you don't have money and budget to do more expensive marketing. And that's why we get our early customers, our users.
Thank you. Any more comments?
I'm just going to add to what Alexis was saying earlier. We know that about 2 years ago, time spent on messaging passed time spent on social. Meaning, most of the social platforms are in decline and messaging is now kicking off. Mark Zuckerberg even said that in 2017. He said all of the growth in Facebook is going to be in private stories and messaging. So that's where everybody is right now. And that's a good thing, I think, because social media was supposed to be about bringing people towards conversation, bringing community, and it quickly became not that, right? And what we're seeing is messaging now is where people are having conversations. And more people having conversations, like on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere. I think one of the cool things about Kim's platform is she'll put a post out, and that's cool, it's good content, but really from a technology point of view and from what I'm doing, seeing the million people having a conversation and millions of different parts of conversations about totally random things, she is a catalyst for this entire community to talk about every aspect of their lives. And that, I think, is the future, and that's where people, when we talk about user acquisition, you have to go where people are. People are really in messaging and conversations, and if you can build products around that, that builds better community, that lets people talk to each other more effectively, that helps a lot of the problems that social media has brought onto the world today.
So thank you. Yeah, taking advantage of basically the conversation that actually users start amongst themselves. Yes, Alexis?
My only growth hack, some of you may know this, in 2005 when we were starting out, because Reddit is all usernames, if you saw any of the posts in the first 4 months of Reddit, even though it looked like a bunch of different people, it was just me. With different usernames. So wait.
Now he
Are you applauding for the cleverness of the hack? Okay, well, they're not fake anymore. They're mostly real now. But I will also, because of what Alex said, it just underscores a bigger point, which is the genius of what you've done, Kim, is you and a few others have actually started to get some of the value back that you've given platforms like Instagram. And the reality is there's so much that's locked in there that you and your community are responsible for, that I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next 2 years as that evolves, because that's real value, that community. And being able to activate it is what is bringing so much value to these platforms that are doing a very good job managing it. And so I know Zuck and others are trying to find a way to evolve, but I'm longer on the people who actually have the community, because you can bring them with you to new platforms as they merge.
So, the more. So you open up the topic of monetization, right? I mean, yes, a personality like Kim Kardashian West being on a platform obviously brings a lot of value to that platform. But then how does Kim Kardashian West and her company actually monetize? In your world, you're selling both online and offline. We have multiple models. We have premium, we have crowdfunding where actually
Because I
you
get
can
always-
say, yes, I'm going to invest in this product
I get
before the
always from
product comes
Instagram,
out.
oh, see
Have
what
you tried
Kardashian
any
doing.
of those
See
kinds
what
of more
Kardashian
creative
saying.
models outside, selling and basically online to your customers?
I haven't. I mean, I think my model is just, different because I'm selling an actual product. So, I mean, basically just through the products that I sell is how I can profit off of social media and my direct-to-consumer business. But I think the trickier part is I haven't really had to think about the users because I've just made my brand a part of my life. And so the balance is also, I don't think my fan base just wants to see things that I'm selling. They want to see that part of my world, and so they feel invested because maybe they saw on my show that I was fighting with my sister over a specific fragrance. And so now they feel really invested when the fragrance comes out. So it kind of all goes together. And then as a businesswoman, the joy that I have so much inside is when I have products that just sell when I obviously love the people that are invested in the fans, but someone that might actually not be a fan and might stumble across my product or get it as a gift, and then they genuinely love the product and become
How they
fans
discover.
that way. Yeah, it makes me really happy when I hear different stories of people just really enjoying the product, maybe not even knowing that I'm attached to the product.
That's fantastic. Any other ideas on monetization? Alexis, you're the venture capitalist, so you are watching how actually entrepreneurs can monetize their ideas.
I think it's interesting. There's few platforms really get to scale unless the people who run and own those platforms deeply understand their users and know when is too much and when is it time to ask. And I think we're seeing more and more creative ways to bring money into the conversation that feels communal. A good example, like a company like Twitch that brought tipping to a Western audience for a live stream is a way for someone who is a streamer, and I'm not an investor, I'm not a Twitch guy, no bias here. They really popularized for Western audiences this idea of, oh look, I'm entertaining you, and people will give money in real time simply for the acknowledgement within the tribe, within the community of viewers, that Fluffy Bunny 64 gave $5 to this streamer. And Fluffy Bunny 64 isn't even a government name, I hope, but it still has value and meaning, and they're willing to take hard-earned money, give it to a streamer who's there, whether they're playing video games or doing a makeup tutorial, and wanting to demonstrate that and sort of flex their kind of generosity in front of the community, and everyone is happy about it. The platform is thrilled, Twitch gets a percentage, they're happy. The streamer is happy because it's paying their bills, and they give a shout out, say, oh, thank you, Fluffy Bunny, appreciate that. And Fluffy Bunny is thrilled. And I think we're going to see more and more creative ways to monetize as new platforms emerge that let everyone win. Because, I mean, that's what at the end of the day software and the internet can do really well, is have supply meet demand. Cameo is another one that's just popped up. That's another, again, I have no vested interest in it, but they're coming up with really creative models that we never really would have imagined even 5 or 10 years ago, because the technology evolves and people are creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are fundamentally two models, where you either provide your product for free and then you monetize using advertisement, or you ask your users to pay. And back like early days, advertisement was the most popular one because of Instagram and Facebook. So there was a venture capital who wants to have like large scale ups with free and monetized through the advertisement. I see, like, last 2 years, there's a fundamental change in that model, and today we see more and more successes on a subscription model. So apps like us and our competitors, and mostly in our segment, start monetizing by providing some premium features on top of the free. After we provide lots of basic and free features, we start monetizing by providing some premium tools on top. I believe in long term it's good for end users because when you do advertisement business, your customer is not the advertisers, they're not the company, not the user. You're thinking about them, not our users. When you do subscription business, you think about your business first because you want to provide value. The value when users are ready to pay. So that is long term, I think, although we are asking users to pay, but they will benefit more because they will get better product.
Absolutely. I think when someone is willing to put their money where their interest is, it shows they get value, and that's exactly what I think happens with your products, Kim. I want to change the discussion now and elevate it and go into some of the heavier topics like public policy. Okay? We in the tech world sometimes get a bad name because we're doing what is very fulfilling at the moment. But we are criticized that we don't have a big enough lens in understanding how our technology might affect the future. Most technologists really want no government involvement whatsoever. We want to self-monitor. We feel we're smart enough to be able to do that. But I think the last 12 months or last 24 months have shown us that that doesn't always work. So curious to get your thoughts on self-monitoring of technology companies, especially content producers, like you guys have all been in the content business. How do you do that? Any ideas, Kim or Alexis? Let's start with either one of you.
Sure. I think we have seen when it works and when it doesn't. We had our own scandal in 2014. It was the reason I actually came back to lead the turnaround of Reddit, because the then CEO had defended revenge porn. That was his last act as CEO, and we swiftly removed him. And we implemented a policy that would say, and couched in the language of privacy, that we respected the privacy of our users as well as just people of the internet, and if non-consensual pornography was posted, we would take it down. Seems like a no-brainer, but until that point, none of the social media platforms actually had a policy in place. And at the time, this was becoming a more and more rampant problem, certainly in the US, probably abroad. And states were trying to craft legislation and were trying to do things because it was a real issue. And that was one scenario where the platforms took too long, but still got their act together and now have effectively policed it. And every platform from Twitter to Google, everyone else followed suit with a similar policy, and it's effectively been halted. And so God forbid if one of those photos gets submitted there, it does get taken down promptly, immediately, and users banned, etc. And so I think there are instances where we see the tech community often too slow, but do a good job policing itself, or sort of good enough. But I think the reality of what we've now seen in the last few years is the effect and scale and impact that these platforms have, not just in the US, where it definitely does, but also abroad in countries with much less developed media ecosystems, is very real, and there is a responsibility that comes with that, especially when content is being shared to promote hate or worse. And so I think this is going to be a very interesting next couple of years in the US. I do believe government has a role, absolutely, in protecting its citizens. I get worried when there aren't technologists in the room to help them craft that, because then they start making decisions that are ostensibly going to do good, but actually end up doing more harm in the long term because of unforeseen consequences. And it's the same reason if you're going to go into surgery, you want to talk to as many surgeons as you can, or doctors, before you do it. Likewise, I would love to see more technologists at the table when these things are being discussed. And I would like to see less of situations where sitting senators are asking Mark Zuckerberg, what is your business model? Because that is dumb. Like, you should have done the homework before the meeting to know what the business model of Facebook was, for instance.
No question about that. I think that was really a very sad moment for the United States Congress. Having said that, I also think that us technologists have the responsibility to educate the lawmakers and make them understand. How much time do you guys, Alex and Hovhannes, spend on actually monitoring content?
Quite a bit, actually. So, as a pretty large search engine, this happened in the first year, and we had an entire team dedicated to moderation, also editorial, because we would do searches for things like women or men, and if 1 billion people a month are searching for women on your search engine and looking for visual representation of what women are, you need to be able to represent a worldwide view. So we had an entire team come in, and we made a call as a company not to optimize for click-through rates, so more and more people clicking on things like the way the internet works. And we had a team that came in and made a very inclusive, diverse, and someone wrote about it, representation of men, women, children, of pretty much every topic that you can see in culture. We're not doing the best job yet. I mean, we try the best, and I think we're better than most everyone on the internet, but I think having technologists in the room is great, but we also need cultural philosophers in the room in tech companies. Because we're honestly, we're just making this up. Like when people ask, is this a good page that represents the term like happy or love? We don't know. We're just a bunch of engineers trying to figure out, this is what 100 million people will send the next hour to represent love to everyone they know. What should those images be? And that's a lot of responsibility we have. And it has to be multicultural, it has to be representative of, it can't just be a bunch of white dudes representing love to everyone, right? Like maybe in Silicon Valley. But so that responsibility falls on us, and we spend a lot of time on it. So we in the very beginning we decided not to have any adult content. We wanted to be kid safe. We wanted to be representative of culture, but honestly, it's a very hard problem because we don't, as technologists, we aren't the best people to say what is appropriate for culture, but we actually, governments aren't the best people to say that either. We don't actually have experts telling us what we should be doing.
What you're basically saying is we need more social scientists.
We do, we need academics.
Philosophers.
In technology, I think every startup should have academics, social philosophers that are part of the technology. There should be a new job called Chief Social Officer or something. That is someone that's, and this is, all my PhD friends are like, yes, I need a job. But we need those people because we're not the best people to be making this policy.
Excellent point. Hovhannes, you live in a world where actually people get to great idea, or you look at a product and say, gosh, that's such a great idea. I wish I had done it. In real rapid succession, because we don't have much time. Who's going to jump in first?
I mean, there's so many, right? Like inventing the computer and everything. I don't know. Instagram. There's so many. One of their companies.
Kim, you're very, very politically correct. Very good answer. How about that?
When I watched Steve Jobs introducing iPhone, I was thinking, wow, this thing is going to change the world. And that it really does. And this is probably the biggest invention which happened during my lifetime, which changed the life of so many people. I wish I was that guy.
This is going to sound a little weird, but I think the greatest invention that I wish I could have done is the Postal Service. Before the internet, for thousands of years, people have been able to communicate globally through this decentralized network that could withstand wars and famine, and you can take a piece of paper and deliver it to anyone in the world within a few days. And all the governments are backing this. This is like a very public good. The United States backs it with government money. The entire Postal Service is, I think, still by far the most interesting network of communication ever built. I think it'll probably outlast the internet. So if I could have worked on that, that would have been great. Postmaster.
And Alexis.
I mean, there is a laundry list of companies I wish I had invested in. The thing that I got to live a little vicariously through, thanks to social media and all of you, was the revolution. And I know it's not a company, but hey, Edge of excited and so proud and so amazed. And I wish I could say that I actually had a role in it. I had none aside from a few retweets. But that it's that is it.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for being such an amazing audience. I want to also thank all my panelists. It's not every day that you get to sit on a panel with someone who has 250 million followers. So thank you for agreeing to be part of this panel. And Kim, specifically for you, thank you for making the trip all the way out to Armenia to be part of this. Thank you, everybody.
Let's hear it. One more time, just raise the roof, please.
So are we going to go to that place or?